I'm Monica Fritz, and I'm the author of Graduate Your Beercraft, a poor college kid's guide to craft beer. It's kind of surreal. I talk to my mom about it all the time, and she keeps saying, "Oh, so exciting, so exciting." And I have the cover, but I think when I actually have a physical book in my hand, it'll be pretty cool. I am definitely excited, but I also kind of want it to happen, just so I'm kind of done with it and it's there. But definitely really exciting, cool feeling. My friends are all ready to come, so. I think my initial thought was confusion at first, and I didn't really know if we were going to start writing the first week or when it was actually going to, I'm writing a chapter a week and then going from there. And then I guess my second thought was more like, all right, I'll get it done, I'll get it graded, and that's it, it'll be done, over with. Never thought that I would be here today, 4 weeks out from publishing. Yes, but not this type of book. I've taken like nonfiction writing classes, so I thought maybe I could write. I know when I was younger, I loved sports, like fiction sports novels, so I thought maybe I could do that, but definitely not a book like this, almost educational in a sense, and on a real industry that I'm looking into working in. I'd say pick a topic that's fun, that you want to learn about, it's a hobby. I remember the beginning of the class you said pick 10 people that you would want to hang out with, and one of my groups was beer drinkers. So I obviously didn't have that much knowledge of the craft beer industry going in, and this book, it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I've tried a lot of different beers now, and it's one of those things that you're going to continue to grow knowledge in and grow interest in. I still, when I go to Total Wine & More at home with my dad, I'll literally sit in the craft beer aisle and just go up and down for like a half hour. So pick a topic that's fun. It doesn't need to be anything private equity or your new algorithm of a trading system. It doesn't have to be anything super profound, I don't think. I think it's just have fun with it. Yeah, so I actually came in originally with the old syllabus, with the whole business plan, thinking I was going to pitch a buffalo chicken food truck. And so I remember I was trying to tell Tucker that was what I was going to write my book on, like the food truck business and buffalo chicken, and he was like, "No, you're not." He's like, "That's like your worst idea." So the beer one was kind of cool at first, just because, I guess like any college kid, you don't really think that that's an industry to work in. Especially MSB, it's a lot of banking, consulting. I'm a marketing major, so I was thinking that. I wasn't really thinking to work at Anheuser-Busch and sports partnerships or anything like that. So when I kind of like got the idea and started looking at stats, definitely got interested in it. But then again, the interviews and everything, just messaging people on LinkedIn, who checks their LinkedIn that much. So I was excited about it, and then kind of once I started talking to people, I got more into it and was doing research on my own. Going out buying craft beer on my own and trying it, so I could kind of throw my suggestions into the book too of what I liked and what I disliked. But yeah, it was definitely a process of getting myself excited for it, but then once you kind of get into the research, you definitely, I think my topic's different than some people's. Sure. It's not really trying to get you a job or anything. It's literally on beer. So that's pretty cool. And I enjoyed writing it, but it was a lot of fun figuring out, navigating the whole process. Yeah, so I actually have a friend who graduated here last year who works at a brewery in Cincinnati, and he was pretty much one of my first interviews because I knew he worked there and I knew he would definitely help me out. And he gave me a few of his friends at the brewery, and some of them were they basically did Venture for America, ended up at this brewery, and now they all love Cincinnati, that everyone has a beer there at the brewery. It's like you take on this whole different lifestyle. And so those are pretty cool just because they were 22, 23-year-olds, new to it and grew up on craft beer. Well, one of them grew up on craft beer, the other one still to this day, he was like, I get my free beer from the brewery, but if I'm out, I'm probably ordering a Bud Light just to save money. But then you have the people who started working craft breweries and converted completely. They can't even pick up a Bud Light or even like Presidente. They can't pick it up. It's just not, they don't like it anymore. And then this one guy, Mark, I spoke to, he worked at Anheuser-Busch when Goose Island was bought on, and now he's just pretty much moved around the country at all these different craft breweries. So that's also a cool part of it that I found out, is that you move so much, because, I mean, breweries are everywhere. Like, these statistics, there's over 500 in California alone. So it's just, you don't even realize it. You know, I looked up, I'm from like small town in New Jersey, looked up, there's a brewery 30 minutes from me that you don't think of. You think of Anheuser-Busch and Miller Coors and Heineken, and that's it. Yeah, so that's, it was actually interesting, because that was always a question I asked the guys who worked at breweries, is where did they think that the landscape was going? Because in the past year, it's just continually grown, and so many breweries, and you have the super micro ones who are literally just a living room in a town, pretty much, you know? And then you have the regional ones that will ship from Cincinnati to California to New York and launch new cities all the time. And I mean, then you have the national ones that have been bought out by Anheuser-Busch and Miller Coors, or 50% owned and such. But it was always interesting to see what they had to say, and they, thought in the next few years it'll probably continue to flourish, but then eventually settle down, and they thought people would develop a preference for a microbrewery or a regional brewery or a national brewery. One comment I thought was really interesting was that it was going to follow the wine industry with preferences, just 20 years behind it pretty much, because there are so many different tastes that you don't realize. And that's kind of what I tried to get across in my book, is that you may not like a certain beer, but that's by no means every beer that's made out there. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess the hardest part for me was, so you got the grades back, and then it was getting back into like the work mode, because it was over Christmas break. So I wasn't really excited to open up a 50-page Word doc and continuously edit it. And even this semester, editing again and again, I'm starting to miss mistakes because I've read it so much, so I just skim it thinking like, okay, I know what I say here, it's probably right. So the editing was definitely tough for me. And then I remember the beginning when we first were writing drafts, my chapter 1 was like a page. And I'm like, all right, this isn't getting any longer, I don't know where to go from here, I have nothing else to say. So that's when, again, I was kind of like, all right, get it in, it's a grade, like, I'll be fine. But I mean, now it's cool to see when I get the layout that it's 150 pages in a book, and it's just, yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see that and think I was struggling to get 5,000 words at one point. Oh, I'm most not my parents, because they've read it like one too many times already. I'd probably say my friends, just because, again, I've never really been confident in my writing, and some of them are English majors, some of them, vocabulary was never really my strength. I don't have these huge words that I use, so definitely probably my peers, just because they're probably also the people that I care about most judging me like that too. Like my parents, yeah, well, they're not going to judge me either way, and I think employers are still going to be so impressed with the idea of a book, but I'd say probably my peers, or experts in the industry. So I think the toughest part for me was what I liked as my number one, and then what everyone else liked as their number one. And I kind of ended up going with the second most popular, because I hated the most popular. I was like, I can't do that, I just don't like it. But it was definitely cool to be like, oh, can you change this part, or try this? Or when you literally just pull images off of Google and say like, oh, I kind of like the way this looks, maybe something along those lines. But showing my friends was definitely cool, especially I had a few freshmen come over and they were like, oh my God, you wrote a book, that's so cool. So you have these younger kids, because you come to Georgetown thinking like, oh, you hear these people coming out of Georgetown doing these amazing things, and it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm just another average student, what am I going to do? So this is definitely one of those things where you're like, all right, yeah, I went to Georgetown, I wrote a book, I did that. And the covers are cool. I printed it out on paper and I coach high school, I showed a bunch of the high schoolers. They're like, oh my God, this is so cool, like, can we buy one? Can you sign it? So it's like, they already think I'm cool enough because I'm a college senior, and then I have this book that, is on beer, which is all like, ooh, college parties. So it was definitely a lot of fun to have people look at them and tell me which ones they liked, which ones they didn't. I think it's more the actual book it's kind of catches them off, because I'm in the business school and marketing management. I'm not an English minor. I'm a history minor, but again, writing in the college is definitely different than writing a paper in the business school, and I've gotten that from professors all 4 years. You write like a business major. Well, I am, so it makes sense. So the book is definitely, I think, a different aspect of, they actually have something else besides the finance and accounting background that a normal business major has. So the beer aspect of it, I've actually changed my view. I go in and I notice when there's a craft beer as compared to, you're at a Giants game, you're probably getting a Miller Lite or a Bud Light. But at the Verizon Center at games, I used to get the cans of Bud Lights. Now I'll go and get a draft of like Hoegaarden or Shock Top, which again are owned by Anheuser-Busch, but it's still not your generic beer that you would expect at a sports game. Yeah, so I think the biggest part for me is, like I said earlier, the writing aspect of it, having that credibility, not even just in the beer industry, but writing in general. My dream job has always been be a sports reporter. So now it's kind of like I'm applying to breweries, but I'm also applying, could I get a content job at Sports Illustrated? And just use this as my credibility writing-wise. So it's more general and also specific. I am applying to breweries once May comes, and they're actually job postings that I can start work in June, but it's yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a tough one. I'd say I'm proud of continued putting the effort in. It was tough. I went home and I had 2 weeks before it was due, and I was done with all of my other finals. And every day I was like, all right, I'm going to do like at least an hour or two a day. And some days I obviously skipped because it was winter break and I was sleeping in and laying on my couch and not doing anything. And then again this semester, I'm a part-time senior, so again, putting in that extra work when it doesn't really contribute to my GPA or anything, it's just my general resume building, I guess. And I'd say I'm pretty proud of sticking with it and not just taking the easy route out and being like, oh no, like it's fine, I don't need to publish. Yeah, so I actually am not a huge fan of wine. I like maybe 2 kinds, but I'm not a whole wine night kind of person. Most of my friends are. I'll go and maybe have a glass, but I like beer more. And part of my thing was this summer I was working in New York and I worked at People magazine, so it was a bunch of just 25-year-old girls, which was awesome because it basically like a group of friends almost, and we would have after work events, and it would be everyone was drinking wine, but it'd be at a nicer restaurant that you couldn't just order a Bud Light in a bottle like you do at Piano Bar or Chinese Disco here. And I kind of would always ask, I had one friend, Austin, and I would just ask him like, oh, am I gonna like that? And he would be like, yeah, you're fine, just get it, try it. If you don't like it, I'll drink yours and like you get another one. And that was kind of, he knew a lot about it because he's actually from Switzerland. So, but me, I kind of wanted to have that knowledge of being like, oh, I know I'm gonna like this one, or I know I'm not gonna like this one. And that's kind of what I liked learning about while doing this book, is that I've now developed preferences for certain kinds. There's certain kinds that I'm still afraid to try, but I kind of know what to expect just given certain hints, which I included in my book. So. Yeah, so I guess the brewery in Tasmania, that was just like an awesome week to begin with, but our friends from Tasmania were like, you have to go to this brewery. The best is the pouring contest. You get a laminated paper saying you won the pouring contest. So my friend Abby and I were, all right, we're going. And it kind of made it happen before our flight. But again, I mean, you're in a brewery, okay, you're smelling the hops, you're smelling the malts, but we were really just pumped for like the 6 free drinks in the pouring contest that we got at the end of it. And I still look to see if one of their beers is ever exported to the U.S. It usually isn't though, but but now looking back, it's kind of like I've done research on the brewery process, and I'm kind of, oh yeah, I kind of remember hearing about that on the brewery tour. But again, we were more concerned of how we were getting back to the airport to catch our flight when we were on the brewery tour. So and then the story of the House of Brews in New York, I always find those places cool where they have whatever over 500 beers on the menu, or new beers every month. And they had the bar had Stellas and stuff, but I remember just going with the longboard, and I mean, still to this day, it's one of my favorite craft beers. And I actually was lucky enough to have Billy Smith, who was at one point the head of Kona Brewery, review my book, which was really cool for me. And that was just, I mean, I always, even in DC, I'll see a bar and, oh, they have like over 50 craft beers. Like, I kind of want to go and just look at the menu, you know, like just see, and like the names of the beers are cool too. Some of them are just so different. It's just a lot to take in, and you kind of wonder, I wonder a lot where the names come from of the beers too. Like, how do they make that up? So my friend Sam, who I interviewed, is just kind of a big craft beer guy, and he told me beginning of the semester when I first was interviewing people, he started getting into it by picking out cool bottles. And so that's what how I started getting into it, but then I would also note which kinds I liked, which I didn't, but the bottles were so cool. So I actually have kept all of them. I have a collection at home right now. I'm going to try to do something with them after graduation. But so I started off on that, and then I talked to a guy who's a grad student at GW, and he's pretty much worked in breweries all of his life and beer shops, and he works at the beer shop in Arlington, which is just all craft beer. And he told me, like, look at IBUs for hoppiness and bitterness, or the higher the alcohol content, the sweeter it's going to be, that sort of thing, and like colors wise and everything. So I definitely go towards, I always try to look at the IBU because I don't really like IPAs that much. So the higher the IBU, the higher the bitterness, and IPAs are tend to be more bitter. But that's definitely, I thought the bottle thing was really cool when Sam said that, because there are a lot of cool bottles out there, and you see these small breweries. One's called Clown Shoes Brewery, and all their labels are like hilarious. Like their stout's I think it's called the Mexican Stout or something, and it's like a muscle man in a sombrero on the bottle. It's just like funny, and definitely a cool way to do it. But I go into more, there's apps you can get to check in and rate beers, so you know kind of which kinds you like and which you don't. But I definitely think the bottles, if you're starting just going out blind, I think that's a cool way to do it, or look at the IBU, because one guy, Dan, I interviewed, said 40 is really the cutoff. If you're new to it, try to stay under 40 IBU, otherwise it could be a little too aggressive for your first time. All right, let me think about this. See, it's tough because there's so many out there that it's like, I still want to try more. 3 beers for the rest of my life. I'd go with the Kona Island Lager, the longboard. That's definitely one of them. I think it was the Cascade in Tasmania, the Cascade Stout, which I'm not a huge stout person at all, but literally was just like, it tastes like you were drinking Baileys. Like, it was delicious. It was a dessert. And I guess a third as of now would be, trying to think, what breweries have I tried? I kind of want to include an IPA, but I'm still afraid to try a lot of them because I haven't liked the 2 that I've tried. So I'm going to put an IPA, but not a specific brand on it. Oh yeah, my friends, I had a friend in the class, and hers was on kind of an Uber for waitressing and waiters, and they were like, at least hers is something useful, yours is on beer. So, and it's true. I mean, even I at first, when I was talking in job interviews about it, I was at first self-conscious about saying, oh yeah, I wrote a book on beer. I mean, you think, oh sick, you're in college, you drink beer. But it's kind of more than just, it's on the industry itself and the appreciation for it. And even me, while writing it, I developed a deep appreciation for these breweries, and you watch these movies on these people who pretty much drop everything to like help their local community with this small town brewery. But I definitely did get that reaction, not so much from employers. They were more open to, elaborate on it, so I would talk about the class more, because again, at that stage, it wasn't really a full-on book. I didn't have like a launch date or anything. But yeah, I definitely did get that reaction a lot. And I still say, like, oh, my book's on beer. Sick, I'm in college, I wrote a book on beer. Myself. Well, I have a friend who's in the class now, and she keeps texting me, what did you do with your first chapters? Like, how did you write them? And I literally said, I was like, I don't know, just write something down and it'll build up, and it's a draft. I've edited my chapters probably over 25 times. The first one you write just to submit the assignment isn't going to be the one that's being published. Writing wise, I'd say I did a lot of mine over Thanksgiving. I pretty much locked myself in a coffee shop with all my research, and I was like, all right, I need to knock out 2 or 3 chapter drafts right now. And I think that definitely helped me, because then in finals, I was still working on it, and it was almost like taking a break from studying. But definitely have at least 1 or 2 times where you literally just sit down and knock out as much as you can. And then the editing after that kind of comes. But I'd say definitely don't push it off. Don't try to do it all in once. Do it, get most of it done before it's due, and then your final edit, it's like, okay, it won't take me that long. I'm Monica Fritz, and I'm the author of Graduate Your Beercraft, a poor college kid's guide to craft beer. So the book basically is introductory to the craft beer industry, trying to develop an appreciation for it, but then also educate yourself. So when you go out to a bar or you're at the liquor store, you can buy your first 6-pack or buy your first craft beer and not be nervous about not liking it. Conquer your fears, I guess, and really delve into the world of sophisticated beer drinking. So my book is mostly aimed at kids graduating college or young professionals, but it can really be for anyone.